We're still on the AM show, and thanks to Muftah for bringing us the sports. Now, the informal economy that is neither taxed nor monitored by any form of government is one that contributes largely to the Ghanaian economy in terms of revenue mobilization. But workers of the sector have little or no education with respect to pension plans. James Eshan looks into this development in today's edition of AM Business.
80% of the workforce in the country is employed by the informal sector, but there's a sector that has been characterized by job insecurity, low wages. But most of these workers in the informal sector seem to have little or no idea about pensions plans. We'll be speaking to some of these workers in the informal sector as well as the National Pensions Regulatory Authority to know what's the way forward as an authority as to whether they have a plan to help these informal sector to incorporate them into their day-to-day activity. We are looking into pensions now in the informal sector. We know the informal sector contributes 80% of the Ghanaian economy, right? But it appears most of them seem not to have interest in doing pensions. I would want to know, do you have any pension plans?
I have a pension plan, but for now, I am not into. But right now I have something that I'm doing small. I'm also thinking about my pension plan.
But what's motivated or inspired the decision for you to have that pension plan?
Yes, I know that from my sisters going, I cannot work. And as I cannot work, I need to also depend on something. So if I have the pension plan, I think when I am on my pension, I can have a little amount of money that I can use to support myself and my family.
Do you have any pension plan?
I have it because I've traveled around the world. I've got more insights on how important these things are. So it's very important to me. So if we begin to hammer on pension plans, people will begin to understand the need for pension plans.
It's part of the world called Ghana or Africa to be precise. By reason of our interconnection with family members, my uncle, my aunt, and then at times we try to rely on kids and external family members because of their pension is not currently generally. Unfortunately, when you come to informal sector, let's say as a pastor, if you permit me, I began Peace Chapel, so maybe that's what you were asking about your church. Yeah, but when you start a church, it's not your church, it's Jesus' church, right? And here you are a pastor. You have started a church, and maybe members begin to bless you, and you think it's going to be there forever, so you don't plan about tomorrow. The same way most people have. I used to be a young boy. Now I'm almost 60 years. I'm growing, and common sense and nature tells me that the kind of strength I used to have in my 20s, I don't have them now. And yeah, you know, as a Christian, we believe in God. I mean, our tomorrow is in the hands of God. Having said that, looking at the Bible, Jesus spoke about planning. As a matter of fact, the God who created us is the God of planning. Why? He first and foremost made the Garden of Eden before Adam and Eve were created. And here we are, superstition and other stuff. Oh, but something that you can do, God won't do for you. If you don't use your brain to think about your tomorrow, you are not going to blame God. So, those who are preachers, yes, I believe in God. Tomorrow is in the hands of God. But please, don't leave everything in the hands of God. Not at all. Why are you using your brain for? He created us in his own image to be planners. So let us think and plan about tomorrow. If not, you are going to be regret if you live to see tomorrow.
Pension, say?
Young Casamuno, Ahano. Yeah, Moabi, and my young cousin, we are drivers, no, I knew you. Say,
I don't contribute anything to any company as pension contribution, but as drivers, when there is an unforeseen circumstance, we contribute some monies together to help the individual.
Jumana, we went to me and found you and see Skabi. That should be a how that.
Many are of the view that pensions are meant for the formal sector, but the National Pensions Regulatory Authority says it has rolled out plans to sensitize Ghanaians on pensions.
Indeed, I wouldn't even say it is the most important, but it is one of the most important areas of our functions. That is to bring pension to the informal sector of the society. You're right, our society is largely informal, and so to have a pension system which does not cover the informal sector will not be adequate at all. And so the act under which we act, which is Act 76, is that the National Pensions Act, gives room for informal sector workers to participate in pensions, even to the extent of about 35% of their income into pensions tax-free. And that is one area that as regulators we are concentrating, because with the formal sector it's mandatory anyway, so that will be done as a matter of course. But the informal sector is voluntary, and therefore it requires a lot of education and sensitization. And there's a misconception out there, because up until 2010, pension was only for the formal sector. So that misconception has really sunk deep into the consciousness of the people. And therefore, you will need to educate and sensitize them that this time around, pension is for all, whether you are in the formal or the informal sector. So it is one very strong area that we are concentrating on. And indeed, most of the schemes that we have encouraged and registered are in the informal sector. So we are very, very deeply involved in the informal sector. Yes, it is a challenging area, because in terms of penetration, people work on individualized basis, and therefore you have to approach them individually. It is also very difficult for people in the informal sector to leave their shops, their markets, to come to a sensitization center or to come to MPRA for that matter. So you have to take the education to where they are. So we have a system in place which we call the market activation, that our team will go to the marketplace, to the shops, to the very, very areas of their operation, and educate and sensitize them. So market activation is one very strong area. We also have what we call a pension clinic, that we will take a van and go to their areas where they operate mostly, and then we will ask them, or they will come and ask us questions, or we will educate them and give them the kind of understanding that they want. Sometimes we also use dramatization. We work with a number of companies, Ghana Dance Ensemble, for example, to dramatize for them to know that pension is also for them. Just recently, we organized a National Pensions Awareness Week, which was launched in Koforidua. We went to Sunyani to sensitize cocoa farmers, because now we have a pension scheme for cocoa farmers. Kumasi, we went to Cultural Center, and then we brought a number of workers there, informal sector workers with us. We went to Winneba, we went to Tema. So we've been across the country, and the emphasis is on informal sector. So our education sensitization program targets these people where they work, in places where we can get their attention. I would like to appeal to our informal sector workers. The misconception that pension is only for the formal sector is a thing of the past. Since 2010, we have personal pension plans and group personal pension plans that are available for any Ghanaian who works in any setting, formal or informal, but mostly in the informal sector, because it is voluntary, that people need to sign up, because it is not every time that you have the strength to wake up in the morning through the hustle and bustle of practicing your trade. A time will come where you will be, you'll retire. A time will come where you cannot go about to your normal duties, and the situation where you have to rely on your children is now becoming a thing of the past. So you need to save for a rainy day, so that when you are no longer able to apply your trade, then you can fall back on them and then have a retirement income security. So every Ghanaian needs to sign up on a pension.
It's clear that most of these informal sector workers seem not to have much knowledge when it comes to pension plans. Some are yet to plan, but the National Pension Regulatory Authority seem to have some plans to incorporate these informal sector workers into their day-to-day activity. For Joy Business, James Ishen.